What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Brazos Sports Prepscast. I'm Alex Miller, joined always by Andrew Tenio, Jake Weiss. Fellas, interesting first week in the Brazos Valley. Had some tough losses, some good wins, but I think I look at my picks and I go, man, a little bit of a chaotic week in some ways.
A little bit of surprise. We answered some questions. We had a little bit of questions that we figured out a little bit about some teams, but other teams we're kind of going to figure out as well in the next couple weeks.
I think chaos kind of sums it up, Alex. I mean, first game I was at least, College Station's down 28-0, and then they tie it up at 28-28, then lose late in the fourth quarter. So I mean, yeah, chaos is a good way to put it. Yeah.
Well, Jake, we'll start with you. The one local team that did win was A&M Consolidated, and, well, they did it in a pretty emphatic fashion, I should say. Lot of good, positive on the running front with the rushing game and Amari and Moore, and Consol's got a good test this week going on the road to face Forney.
Yeah, no kidding. All I can think about, Alex, and I know you were at the Forney game last year, but that was kind of the game. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here for anybody, but that was the Wesley Couch breakout game. So kind of all I keep thinking about is, okay, there's a lot of star power on both teams, but you kind of wonder, like, okay, who's going to be that guy that maybe comes out of nowhere for both teams and makes a big play? Because what that was, I think they called that the hit around Consol. There was some, I remember they had some phrase for that, Alex. I don't remember if you remember.
Yeah, I can't remember either, but I remember the hit.
Yeah,
it was pretty dang good.
So, that's something that I keep coming back to. I actually talked to A&M Consolidated defensive lineman Wyatt Beavers, one of their team captains this season. So that was something new I learned, too. They're doing permanent team captains. Thought that was interesting. He's one of three, but, he's really excited for this game. Spoken like a true defensive lineman, he said, hey, it's going to be a four-quarter game. We know that. But he thinks it's really going to come down to who can stop the run. So that's going to be something interesting because, like you said, Consol ran the ball real well in week one. Forney did as well. They've got that Notre Dame running back. So that's going to be I know, like I said, Wyatt's a defensive lineman, so stopping the run's big for them. But I think he's right. It really could come down to that in this one.
For all the good that Consol did last week, though, they need to take care of the football a little better. I think they had like 5 or 6 fumbles. Didn't lose all of them.
Yeah, they had like 6 fumbles.
6 fumbles, lost 3 of them, and then they threw 1 interception. Yeah. So
you need to take care of the ball a little bit.
Yeah, you're going to need to against a good team like Forney. And, man, that's a bit of a road trip, too. You're going to have 3 hours to really lock in, and I'm sure, too, on the way back. They'd much rather want a happy 3-hour bus ride back than a sad 3-hour bus ride back.
Well, Andrew, we'll hop to you. The Bryan Vikings, tough loss against Magnolia West to open the season. What'd you see from Bryan and what they need to do going into this week's matchup against a pretty good Huntsville team?
I think one of the big surprises to me, and if you were kind of keeping tabs with Bryan leading into the season, it wouldn't be a massive surprise, but the way the defensive line and linebacking core was be able to create havoc. I think they had 8 tackles for a loss, and they forced 3 fumbles on the night and only gave up 13 points. They did a little stats to back this up. The last time Bryan gave up 13 points or less was the opener in 2023. So it's been a couple years since they've had a defensive performance like that. Unfortunately, offensively, they weren't able to get enough going. No Javalen Wade. Wasn't quite told why. Kind of basically was just unavailable, so unsure of his status heading into Friday's game against Huntsville. But we did see a playmaker. We did see one, Ian Foster, a wide receiver, who was Cooper Murr's kind of go-to target, 99 yards, had a touchdown catch. Was kind of a guy that they try to get vocal with pretty early and pretty often. So I saw really good line play from the defensive line, saw some good things in the passing game, still some mistakes sprinkled in here and there, but I'm curious to see if Ian Foster can continue his ascension alongside what Javalen Wade's status is heading into the Huntsville games. I think that'll be really important to have that second playmaker, and this one, Javalen, being a much more foundational playmaker.
Jake, you mentioned the College Station game earlier. Tough loss for the Cougars after battling all the way back. Just what stood out to you from that game as they prepare for a pretty decent Magnolia team this week?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I was really surprised by, which look, there's no moral victories, obviously. Nobody was getting a Gatorade bath afterwards for, almost winning week 1. But, I think the most interesting thing that I kind of saw was, and really Coach Stoney Pryor said this after the game, which really stood out to me, was that, hey, what we learned about this team was we have potential. We're not there yet, but we're getting there, which I thought was real interesting. Really impressed, too, with quarterback Keaton Johnson, both through the air and then on the ground as well. I had him about, I think, $190 through the air and then about 101 on the ground. I think 17 carries, 101 yards. Real impressed with him, especially, too, he had some really nice long runs. He could do it short yardage and long runs, and I got to give credit to his O-line, too. Can't forget those guys. They were getting a lot of push there. Just like I said, didn't result in the win. Nobody was super happy afterwards. There was no, hey, we almost beat them. Let's hang the banner. But I think they can really get it going on the ground. That's what stood out to me week 1. I'm sure they'd probably like to get their running backs figured out a little bit more and get that going. But real impressed with the dual threat ability of Keaton over there.
Magnolia won their first game over Montgomery Lake Creek 41-13. That's a pretty impressive result for Magnolia. Interested to see how the Cougars respond. They have not lost a home game since like 2017 or something. The streak is pretty impressive. So I went with the Cougars mostly on that, and also the fact that they showed in that second half what they're capable of, and there's a lot to build off of that, but it's hard to pick against a streak that's as good as that.
I was going to say, they're pretty reliable over there at Cougar Stadium. So,
well, Andrew, the Rudder Rangers, it was a tough result for them last week against New Caney West Fork. What's kind of the MO over at Rudder right now going into this week's game against what's typically a pretty good program in El Campo?
And Jake can latch on to this with some comments as well. I know you were at the game this past Friday. But Izar really just talked to me about, they kind of knew coming in they were going to be a little young. They were going to be young coming in, and they're facing a new Caney West Fork team that brought back all 22 starters from last year. And I understand last year was their first varsity season, but you don't see all 22 guys coming back very often, especially at that level at 5A2. And he just said there's just gonna be a little bit of growing pain in certain areas. They didn't expect to get pushed around the way they did in the trenches, especially along the front seven, a unit that they were very confident in coming into the year. I think West Fork went for over 300 rushing yards, I believe.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So somewhere in that realm, a number that Izar doesn't want to see at any point the rest of the season. And they're trying to get the offense going a little bit. Silas Sullivan, the new starting quarterback at Rudder, trying to get him a little familiar with the situation. He had a high completion percentage, 80% completion percentage, but didn't make a ton of deep throws. They kind of wanted to get him into the playbook, integrate a little bit more. So they're really just trying to figure out, these young guys and get them these experiences, and they feel like the West Fork game can end up being a good experience by the time the season ends. And if you want to add anything on top of that, you saw them with your own eyeballs for a couple hours. So,
man, you took the words right out of my mouth. Only thing I want to add is shout out to Brandon Brown. He laid the boom a couple times. I mean, if I was that New Caney West Fork quarterback, I'd be pretty sore in the morning. So, I was impressed with some of those big hits he took and was able to get up. But shout out to Brandon Brown. He, like I said, he really laid the boom a couple times.
Well, were there any area results that kind of caught your eye in week 1?
Ooh, Madisonville. Big one for me. One, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but Madisonville at Navasota, Highway 90 rivalry.
Oh yeah.
That game's really when we talk about our high school picks. That one for me was one where I was really like, man, I just need to copy off someone else's.
Who'd you go with?
I went with Madisonville.
I did too.
And I'll explain why, because what surprised me in week 1 was, and maybe this was just me, but, you think back to Madisonville last year, who was their big guy? Philip Green Jr., right? Just kind of give him the ball, pass it back, hand it off to Philip and just kind of get out of his way, right? Shout out to Jaden Simpson, filling in for I don't know if he's going to be the starter, if they're going to do it by tailback by committee, but, man, he impressed. 12 carries, 274 yards. 5 touchdowns last week against Diboll. I mean, I looked at that stat line and was like, okay, they have answered, their running back question, or at least the running back question I had. Real impressed with him, and that really makes it an interesting week too, because it sort of seems like to me, yes, Navasota is not an air raid team, but Navasota does seem to get it going more through the air. So it's kind of like a little bit of contrasting styles this week when those two meet.
I was really impressed with Rockdale. Their offense was humming. Grayson Williams, I believe, threw for 6 touchdowns. DeAndre Stevens did DeAndre Stevens stuff. He's been doing that for a couple years now, but he got a sidekick in Alex Green, who did a lot for that passing game as well. Was really unexpectedly surprised by the way Rockdale threw the ball around. Curious how they go at things against Tarkington, a 4A school. And then Leon, the Cougars.
Man, they took Lubbock Trinity Christian to the woodshed. It seemed like.
And
I was wrong.
Yeah, well,
I'll own that.
We'll talk about Leon. I'd assume we talk about Leon again here a little bit, but was really surprised the way they play. They had to go all the way to Abilene for that game, and they blew them out. So really impressive start from Leon.
I covered Franklin. I wasn't. China Springs, pretty solid club.
Yeah, they had a rare down year last year,
but I was a little surprised at times. That Franklin struggled the way they did. They really struggled to contain the run. You know, Coach Fannin said after the game, a little out of shape, dealt with some cramps throughout the game. It was a very humid night. But, you know, Franklin's got a really tough non-district slate, and there were some good flashes. Like Sawyer Janus, I mean, he had some good runs in there. And they're going to need some new guys to step up at that running back position to carry the load on that offense. And, you know, he was a guy that I thought did some really good things in that game. Franklin, they've got a week off this week, and then, I mean, they're playing Salina, who, if they don't win state in 4A, something has gone terribly wrong for them because they are by far the favorites to win in their division. But I'm curious to see how Franklin responds here over the next few weeks. Or sorry, they play Lorena first.
Yeah,
my apologies.
In Salina.
They play Lorena first, and so what does Franklin look like next week which Lorena is also a really good team that they have a lot of history with.
Hey, that whole non-district slate for Franklin.
Yeah, man, it's kind of it's
a gauntlet.
It's tough. I mean, and you know, credit to them for scheduling that. And you know, I think we'll look back in November and go, wow, Franklin's figured it out, and they're rolling, and they might take some lumps early, and they might be in some dogfights early, but it'll pay off down the road. I'm willing to bet.
Oh yeah.
So, hey, let's look at some area games this week. Jake, you touched on Madisonville, Navasota. What's another one that you had on your 3 games to watch?
Man, now I wrote this story late last night, so now you got me thinking. Which one did I have on here?
I feel like you wrote about Bremont and
Oh
Grapeland.
yeah, geez, I can't believe that's staring me right. And if it was a snake, it would have bit me. Yeah, that's gonna be a good one, man. Third time these two have met. Last 2 seasons. Last year, you know, Bremont lost in week 2, and then they came back in the state quarterfinals and beat Grapeland to go on to the state semifinals there, where they fell to Shiner. But yeah, these guys meet each other again. I mean, this is a matchup, too, where you kind of wonder, like, okay, are we going to be talking about this, like you talk about November for Franklin? You kind of wonder, okay, are we going to be talking about these guys in November, December? Like, oh, here we go again. Credit to Terrence Tank Scott, man. Big week 1 from him over at Bremont. I mean, he did what we've kind of grown accustomed to, right? 18 carries, 5 touchdowns. He did his thing. I think 207 yards. They'll look to get him rolling again. Bremont will, like they always do. But yeah, that's a real interesting one. It's nearly a top 10 matchup in the state too, in 2A Division 2. Bremont's, I believe, number 3. Granted, Dave Campbell's doesn't do a top 25 for every classification. Yeah. But in the preseason, Grapeland came in at number 11. So unless they got jumped, after winning week 1. You kind of think they're still number 11. I wouldn't think so.
There might be a receiving votes section of the poll. They'd probably
they'd still be number 11, I'd assume. So nearly a top 10 matchup, and one that, like you talked about with Franklin, one I think we can maybe see later on in the postseason again.
I got 2 per usual. Crawford Centerville, I think is an interesting one. Crawford coming off an impressive shutout over Anderson Shiro. I think Shiro, and I wrote this in my preseason story, I may have the number of games wrong, so I'm not going to go by that, but they had an over 2-year home winning streak. Crawford goes into their place and wins 19-0. I thought that was impressive on their part. Centerville, we know what they're going to do. They're going to run the ball. They're going to do it well. Really excited for that one. And then we touched on Leon earlier. Leon at Dawson, I think, is a big one as well. Dawson shut out Hubbard in week 1, like 44-0. So, again, another test for the fighting Derek Thomases, and really curious if they can go 2-0.
Mine is Hearn versus Burton. I'm really curious about that one. Is this Burton's first home game at the new stadium?
No.
Did they play last week?
They played one. Well, no. Remember, they played one last year.
Oh, that's right.
I believe it was like the last. Like it was their last possible. I think it was the last possible home game because I believe they moved homecoming too. Like they either moved homecoming up or they moved it back. Like, hey, we're gonna do homecoming for our first home game.
Either way, this is going to be a good game. It has been the last few years when they've played each other in non-district. And I picked Burton to win, but, man, I'm really curious if that Eagle speed's got it in them to finally get over the hump, because I feel like Burton's pulled out a couple of close ones over Hearn these last couple of years. So those boys in Hearn are going to be eager to get Burton this year.
I know they didn't get the results they wanted last year to begin last year, so I'm sure Hearn wants to get off to a fast start considering how kind of things took them a while to get going last year. They want to get fast this year.
Well, guys, any final thoughts or comments?
It's a stacked week.
Yeah, it's a pretty good slate.
Yeah.
Pretty good slate. You got Caldwell playing Robinson. So there you go. There you go. All right. Hey, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Brazos Sports Prepscast. Be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage on high school football here in the Brazos Valley. We'll see you next week.